All right, we are going to do 5 problems together here as far as finding percents of numbers or parts of numbers here. Off to the side, I've put those common percentages that we talked about that you should know at all times. These are the most common basic percent fraction pairs that you will find that people will use in everyday conversation. These are the ones you should know, and these will help us get where we want to be at. Before we always do this, I always want you to take a guess as far as what you think it is. 30% of 220. I'm going to take guesses on these, and I am not going to declare that I am perfect, always right, if I just take a quick guess. I haven't done these ahead of time, so my guess is going to be as good as yours probably, but I want you to become good at this, good at guessing here. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking 30% of 220. This is our first problem. If 50% would be half, which would be 110, we got to go a little lower than that. So my guess is going to be, how about 80? Okay, I'll put that in the corner. We'll see how close I am. For each one of these, we're going to find a couple of different ways to do it, and there's multiple ways to do this. I want you to understand that. There's lots of ways to do this. So your way may be different than mine, but we still should come out to the same outcome. So here's what I'm going to do. We need to make 30%. And I'm looking at what I have here, and I'm going to do 3 10%. Because 3 10% would be 30%. And that's really what we need. So I need to find the value of each one of these 10%. So in order to do that, I see down here that 10% is 1/10 of the number. Okay, so 1/10 would just be dividing by 10. That would be 1/10. So I'm just going to take 220 and I'm going to divide by 10, and that's 22. So that's saying that every 1/10, which is 10%, equals 22. So I'm going to come in here and fill in the blanks. 10% we said was 22. Another 10%, 10% is 22. Another 10% is 22. So now we've got all 30% here. Now we can just add them all together, and that is going to be 66. So 30% of 220 is 66. The number 66 is 30% of this being 100%, this being the whole right here. So I was fairly close, but a little bit off. I was a little high there. Okay. Now, I want to show you another way to do this. And again, there's many ways to do this. I just need a combination that's going to get us 30. Okay. So I'm going to do a 25 and a 5. Okay. That equals up to 30%, which is what we want. So I'm going to come down here. Now, if my whole number is 220 and I want to find 25% of it, 25% is 1/4, so that would just be dividing by 4. Okay, so if I do 22 or 200 and sorry, not 222, 220 divided by 4, that's going to find us 25%, and 220 divided by 4 is going to be 55. Okay, so that equals 55 right there. That is our 25%, so I can fill that in right there, 55. Okay. Now we need to figure out what 5% is. So I'll come down here and 220 divided by, let's see, how do we get 5%? 5% is 1/20th. Every 20th is going to be 5%, so we need to cut it into 20, divided by 20. And if we do 220 divided by 20, we get 11. Okay, that equals 11. So my 5% is going to be 11. Now, if I add these together, what do I get? 55 plus 11 is 66. No matter which way I do this, the combinations, as long as you have a combination of 30% and you did your math right on the side, you're going to get the same thing. Now, one more I want to show you for this, just to be even a little bit more creative, is we can use some subtraction as well. That wouldn't be a bad way to do it if we did some subtraction. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 50% minus, how about 20%, would get us 30%. So we'll do the same thing here, except we'll subtract these two numbers, would be fine. So 50% of it is just half, which we have right there. 1/2 of something, we're just finding half, we divide by 2. So divided by 2 is 110. So my 50% is 110. Now if I come down here to 20%, 20% again is right here. 20% is fifths. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. It takes 5 of these to make 100. So I need to divide by 5. I need to cut it into 5 pieces. So if I do 220 divided by 5, 220 divided by 5 is going to be 44. So there's my 20%. Now, if I subtract instead of add, because 50% minus 20% is the 30% we want, 110 minus 44 is 66. So what I'm trying to show you is that you can be extremely, extremely flexible with this. Okay? Let's try the next one. Here's your next problem. 65% of 20. Okay? So I want you to take a guess to start with here. Okay? So I'll give you a little bit of time to get your guess down before I put mine down. And I'm not going to think for days about it. I'm just going to use a little common sense. All right, my guess would be if I always go off of 50%. I think that really helps. 50% of 20 would be 10. That would be half. So it's got to be a little bit more than that. Maybe I'll say 14. Okay, well, 14. Because 100%, and I always like to label this too, just to remember, the number that we're finding the percent of is always the whole thing. 20 is the whole thing. That's 100%. So now we need to find 65% of 20. So we need some combinations that are going to get us 65%. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a 50%. I'm going to do a, let's see, 50 plus 10 plus 5. How about? That'll work. There's 60, 65%. Okay. So now I just need to do all those calculations. If my whole number is 20, that's 100%, and I want to find 50% of it, that's half. So I need to divide it by 2, which would be 10. Okay? That's part of it. Now I need to find 10% of it. 10% is 1/10, so I need to divide by 10, and I'm going to get 2. So there is 2, and now I need 5% of it. 5% is here, which is 1/20. So that would be 20 cut into 20 pieces. 20 cut into 20 pieces, of course, is 1. So there's 1. Now I just need to add everything together, and my final answer is 10, 12, 13. 65% of 20 is 13. So that is my answer to this problem here. Now if I do it another way, which is perfectly fine, I can do it another way. Maybe I do, let's see, what would be a good way to do it? I could do this. I could do 20, 20, 20, and how about 20, 20, 20, and 5? That'd be 65%. All right, that's 65%. So now we need to find all these values. Okay, so 20% of 20. 20 is 100%, and I need to find 20% of that. 20% is a fifth. We talked about 20% is 1/5 because we go 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. 5 of those in 100. So I'm going to divide that by 5. Okay, that's going to be 4. So 20% of 20 is 4. So then that one would also be 4. That one would also be 4. Okay, 5% of 20. Okay, 5% is 1/20th, and we already found that out right here. We already figured out that 5% of 20 was just 1. So we have that there. We add them all up. 4, 8, 12, 13. Okay, 13 would be our answer here as well. All right, and my guess again was, fairly close. Not quite exact, but it was fairly close. And eventually your guesses will be good here. Now, I'm hoping that you're starting to get used to this process, and eventually you will probably be able to do this in your head. You will probably figure out different and various shortcuts that you can use, which are perfectly fine to do. All right, next one, 48% of 76. Okay, 48% of 76. So here's what I'm going to do for this one. I'm going to first guess. Well, 48% is like almost half. So half of 76 is like 38. So I'll go one fewer. I'll go 37. I'll go 37 for a guess here. Okay. So let's figure out what it actually is. Here's my plan for this one. Okay. You can come up with a lot of plans, but I'm going to do, how about a 50%? Take away a 1%. Take away a 1% is going to be 48%. That would be fine. So let's figure out what this is. We already decided that 50%, let me get rid of that for a second there. If our whole number is 76, if that's our 100%, 50% is like dividing by 2. Okay, so we will divide by 2. That's going to get us 50%, and we said that was 38. Okay, so my 50% is the number 38. Now I need to come down here and figure out what my 1% are, because I'm going to subtract those to get down to 48%. Now, 1% is 1/100th. So I'm going to need to cut 76 into 100 pieces. Now, if you look at this, our second number is smaller than our first one, so this is going to be less than a whole right here. Okay, it's going to be a decimal number. So I'll just use the calculator here and do 76 divided by 100, and I get 0.76. Okay, so 1% of this is 0.76. So that's 0.76, 0.76. Okay, I can subtract this if I want to. If it helps for you, we can do 32 or 38.0 if that helps with your decimals. I'll just use a calculator to subtract. It's 38 minus 0.76 and then minus 0.76 equals 36 and 48/100ths would be our answer. Okay, and my guess was pretty close there, 36 and 48/100ths. Now again, there's a lot of combinations you could do for this, but that would be one good way to do it. Another way that we could probably do this, maybe we want to do, oh, I don't know what we could do. I mean, we have a lot of different choices here. Maybe I do, how about a couple of 20s? That'd get us 40. And then how about a 5? That'd give us 45. And then we'll get a 1, a 1, and a 1. Okay, that is probably more things, but it still adds up to 48%. Okay, so now let's figure this out here. 20%. So these two are going to be the same thing. 20%. If my number is 76, that's my 100%. 20% is going to be 1/5 of that. So I need to divide 1/5 is just dividing by 5. So if I do 76 divided by 5, that's 15.2, or 15 2/10. Okay, so I'll write that here, 15 2/10, and then I'll do it here, 15 2/10. Now I need the 5%. 5% of 76, 5% is a 20th, 1/20th. So I need to divide by 20. So if we do 76 divided by 20, I get 3.8. 3.8. So my 5% was 3.8. Now my 1% I already have over here, so I can just copy that from over here. We decided 1% is going to be to cut it into 100 pieces. 1/100th is 1%. And that found out to be 0.76. 0.76, that one can be 0.76, that one can be 0.76. Now we just need to add them together and the calculator is fine. 15.2 plus 15.2 plus 3.8 plus 0.76 plus 0.76. Got to make sure I didn't add that wrong there. 15.2 plus 15.2 plus 3.8 plus 7. I did 7.6. That's my fault. 15.2 plus 15.2 plus 3.8 plus 0.76 plus 0.76 plus 0.76 equals 36.48, or 36 and 48/100ths right there. Okay, so we got the same thing. You could have come up with an entirely different way to do this. Maybe you did this, but instead of adding two of these together, since you knew you had two 20s, you just times by 2 there. That's another possibility.